Welcome, everybody. We're live at Broncos training camp down at Broncos Park, powered by Common Spirit, I guess is the way you're supposed to make sure you get that into your head. But out at Dove Valley for the locals, it's obviously a big weekend for the NFL. Everybody starts getting back to camps, and joining us from the NFL Network is Patrick Claybon from NFL Fantasy Live, Game Day Live, others, and some of this, I went back and got a chance to learn a little bit more about you, and when you think about some of this, and fans come out for the first time in the last couple of days, it's always kind of surprising to see the athleticism here, especially before the pads come on, where people realize, wow, this is actually how big, how fast, how strong. You were a two-time state decathlon champion. So you're talking about
many moons ago,
all around. Well, I never was, I can tell you that much. And, all that sort of all-around physicality, when this is on display, it's one of the reasons why you realize the NFL is so popular, because so many different body types, so many different skill sets, so many different ways to play this game, where when you watch football, you think, like, I could do that. And the truth is, some of it, you probably could. And that, I think, makes some of it so relatable and so much fun.
Yeah, it's really because everybody comes to football in a different way, right? And you relate to different players, you relate to them on and off the field, and there's some Air Force jets flying in the back, and that's cool to see.
Yeah.
But honestly, there's so many things where you got 22 guys on the field at one time. They all have different jobs, different responsibilities, and everybody can focus on a different one. And that's what's such a joy, to get people out and up close, because on TV we could only show so much. There can only be so many replays. And I know with the massive construction project going on here, we had to dial back the number of fans, but the folks here in Denver provided such a great experience for the 800 plus fans that were able to be here. And I just think it's such a big, because you see the kids and you see the looks on their faces when they get to be near these guys. They got their PS2 jersey, and there's Patrick right there. It's right there. It's my favorite part of the year.
It is a lot of fun, and it really is a way to be able to get up close and personal to it. And for the Broncos camp this year, after surprising a lot of people nationally with 10 wins and making the playoffs, didn't go well against the Bills, but then again, it still felt like the Broncos overachieved to a certain extent. This camp, from my perspective, has felt very much in this opening week to be workmanlike, because there's some familiarity for the first time in many years. The Broncos are not looking for a quarterback. They're not having to spend their time splitting all these reps, and then that changes what you do with the offense. This feels like the Broncos just got down to business right off the bat, and that's what you want to see from a team that is expected to go make the playoffs again.
And it is a stark difference, and I realize a lot can change in a year, but being here for Back Together Saturday last year,
it's massively different.
All eyes on Bo. What's he going to be like? Is it going to be this chump change on the ground offense? We saw all these short completions at Oregon. Oh my gosh, he can't throw the ball deep, and all of that is long history now.
Right.
It's all over and done. And the jarring thing to me, from, again, just being here this day last year, this day this year, when I was listening to coaches' availability, there weren't even any questions about Bo. It's like Bo is just such a known commodity
already.
At this point. It's like, this is Bo Nix's team. He's the franchise quarterback. Problem solved. And so many franchises, we saw them covering the Steelers today, the Browns. Like, you see teams going through, and I understand it's been a very long time. It was the first playoff appearance since Peyton Manning last year, but teams have significantly longer times finding their starting quarterback, and it's just the relationships that Bo has been able to forge already. He's just everything.
It really feels like it is his team, and that's not just our vibe. You talk to teammates and they talk about it, because like Evan Ingram took the podium a couple of days ago and talked about Bo Nix as one of the reasons he wanted to come to Denver. And then when he said he met him, he was so impressed at his approach, because Bo Nix was a guy that just every day just trying to get 1% better, a little better here, not trying to reinvent the wheel every time, just trying to work on the process. And for a coach like Sean Payton, who you had an opportunity to talk to, process is a lot of how it works. And so the idea between coach, quarterback, and how that synergy happens, some of it is basically in the way they see not only the game, but the way they see Monday through Saturday, and the approach.
Yeah, it's ultimately there's so much nuance, and of course, both Coach Payton and Bo will forget more football today than I'll learn in the rest of my life. But I do think what's the one thing that Coach Payton just talked to us about a few minutes ago was the way that Bo has been able to forge these relationships just in a unique way, because it's not just a route depth and timing and all these other things. Essentially, this is a giant social experiment about how to manage people,
Yeah.
and how to relate to people. And that's the most important part. And that's the part where I think you can take the most pride. And there's zero concern with 10 on
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, when you also host NFL Fantasy Live, of course, and a lot of fantasy football players everywhere. But for the Broncos, a lot of attention being played not locally, but nationally to R.J. Harvey. You talked about the Broncos, and you were totally right saying chump change running game. Was it going to be a chump change running game? And the answer is yes, it was. And the presumption that it will be better is one of the reasons the Broncos feel they can be better. Javonte Williams moves on, wasn't able to ever get the speed back from the really bad injury that he suffered a few years prior. We wish him all the best of luck in Dallas, but they go ahead and draft R.J. Harvey out of UCF in the second. And then after that, they add again, and they grab J.K. Dobbins. But around the fantasy world, everything's about R.J. Harvey.
Yeah.
It's R.J. Harvey, right? And I get that there is always the temptation for people they always want to be the first thing on what's next, right? But this is where sometimes fantasy runs into reality, because this is J.K. Dobbins' job until R.J. Harvey takes it from him. This is a team that was in the playoffs and intends to be in the playoffs again. You're not going and signing a veteran after you drafted the rookie, mind you, and then saying like, oh yeah, we're definitely grabbing the rookie here to back up. We've talked about it on my show before. Out of the 4 returning running backs from last season, J.K. Dobbins outperformed all of them in total.
Yes.
And we saw him out at camp looking very good. That veteran presence and ability should not be discounted. And I get why people get excited about R.J. Harvey for the longer haul. But how do you explain it to people, when sort of the reality of football runs in to the idea for fantasy, where you always want to jump in and get the next guy?
Well, I think you have to remind people that the excitement that they feel for R.J. Harvey is the exact same excitement that people felt for J.K. Dobbins in the past. And J.K. Dobbins nobody's ever taken a job from J.K. Dobbins.
He's gotten hurt, right?
The circumstances of the universe have caused him to deal with devastating injury. I make the case he should have been the comeback player of the year last year, just for the accumulation of trauma that his body has suffered at the most difficult position to come back from that from. He did it. And there was a Chargers season with J.K. Dobbins, and the Chargers were not as successful on offense when J.K. Dobbins was not there. And so I would just say, because it's very difficult, we look and we try to get steals, and everybody wants a steal. And J.K. Dobbins is a known commodity, and so it's going to be very hard to get J.K. Dobbins later than where J.K. Dobbins is supposed to go. And so there's that tendency for rookies to see their ADP creep up, because everybody wants to get in on the ground floor. But there is a balance that you have to take there. And so if you want to take starters, you ultimately want starters at the running back position. If you're going to stack how you draft them, you got to take JK, not to slight RJ Harvey, but just to celebrate everything that JK Dobbins has accomplished, not just coming back, but still he still has that talent.
Yeah.
And he's electric with the ball in his hand.
When you look at the rest of the Broncos offense, that's where most of the improvement has to come from this year. When you look at it from a fantasy perspective or a football perspective, Bo Nix has an additional target in Evan Ingram, but on the other side from Cortland Sutton, they didn't really add. They drafted Pat Bryant out of Illinois, but otherwise they kept their Devon Vele, who surprised as a rookie last year. Troy Franklin, maybe who disappointed a little bit, was the first player that Sean Payton mentioned this week for improvement and a notable improvement. And he had statistical measurements that showed that his route separation was as good as anyone in the league. So when you look opposite of that, think about Bo Nix and how much he had to feed Cortland Sutton. Who on the other side, how does that get solved from the guys they have in the room?
Well, I think with the guys in the room, it's not necessarily the solution to the problem, because Evan Ingram is going to get the targets, is going to have the success. Just as far as an explosive tight end, one of the more explosive tight ends in the league now for coming up on 8-9 years with it that he's been doing this. And I try not to fall into the jersey number trap, but in that number 1 jersey, Evan Ingram looks great.
Yeah, well, you definitely look tall and lean, don't you? With that, which is the one that helps.
The hype train, because
also the only guy out there in pads today. Yeah. The only Bronco that chose to wear pads,
and
he was fired up and ready to go,
ready to work. And I know earlier this week. He said he has a hard time being the first guy in here.
Yeah.
A little bit easier time in Jacksonville. I don't think he meant that to take a jab.
Yeah, I think
at
that's
the
more of a
folks.
telling thing about the Jaguars than it is the
I
Broncos.
I don't think he meant that to be a jab at the folks in Duval. I just think it kind of highlights the way that this is the job part for them to come to work here.
Right.
It's just a little bit easier when everybody is in this cohesive type of atmosphere.
Yeah.
And you know, he saw a lot of highs and lows in
Yes.
Jacksonville, and,
Yeah.
and saw some variations. And to be here where things feel consistent, and he could be a part of a veteran group, including another guy like Talanoa Hufanga, who has all pros on his resume.
Yeah.
Where it's just in a good spot to where it's so good. I cannot stop being a part of this Evan Ingram hype chain. I
Yeah.
really do. And I'm not, because I know there's people who come at it from a standpoint of, oh, Nick's short completions and Evan Ingram on crossers. I think Evan Ingram is going to be utilized vertically.
Yeah. I do too.
Of course, he's a 6'3" guy that's 240 and ran a 4.3. Of course he's going to run crossers. It'd be pointless for him
And
not
it's a
to.
Sean Payton offense, and everyone. I mean, let's face it. We all still have visions of Jimmy Graham in our head,
Yeah.
and you're thinking, man, if Evan Ingram could be that, all of a sudden, you're talking about not only an important player for the Denver Broncos, but for fantasy players and the tight ends that are explosive, few and far between, obviously, and depending on the league you're in, they're really expensive in auction leagues, so you got to pick them really high. Yeah. And so I understand that's one of those opportunities, maybe where people can look for those kind of steals. Although you're right, the hype train may have already left the stage.
Yeah, but yeah, I think Devon Valet is the answer to a lot of questions. Coach Payton certainly has a type. Pat Bryant wearing that number 13 jersey, and Coach Payton making comparisons to Michael Thomas. It's tough to get
right
that
off the bat.
It's tough to get that out of your head.
Yeah.
But it's they're a big group. And I think Franklin is as explosive as any deep guy in the league, and he'll round into shape. And I think there was some he got a ball separated from him today, which happens. This is a very good defense,
right?
with some very active hands, and so it's tough to be too upset about balls that hit the ground against.
I mean, it just makes you better as a receiver to go against those guys. When you look at the Broncos trying to get better from 10 wins and try to advance and get a little bit better, try to move on, but it is a stacked AFC, and it's a stacked AFC West. Right. The Broncos made the playoffs. They're still third in their own division. Mm-hmm. So when you look at this and think, what needs to go right? We've talked about those, but what are the danger zones? What are the things where you look at it and say, if this doesn't hit, the Broncos might not be able to return to the playoffs?
I honestly, in evaluating the totality of this team and how much better they got on offense as the season went on, the only thing that could derail this with a lot of these teams, because you talk about the contenders in the AFC,
right?
It's just the universe deciding. It's just injury,
right?
And dumb luck. And we knock on it for all these teams.
Yeah.
You go back and watch that Texans team against the Chiefs. Tank Dell was back, having his best game of the season, and disaster strikes. And it's just an unfortunate circumstance in this game that we love so much, that it takes guys for big periods of time. But the roster is constructed in such a way. I think this team's going to the playoffs. It's hard to say why they wouldn't.
It's kind of amazing that they flipped it and in such a short span of time when they were still combating the $82 million over 2 years of dead cap money from moving on from Russell Wilson. And now dead cap money, obviously, GMs know to move over that. This year, the Broncos have $32 million. And if you're thinking, oh my gosh, that's still a lot, it is, but it's actually 16th in the league. It's in the middle. Yeah. It's kind of a normal amount. But the fact that they've been able to fill up this much of a roster, because you look at it when Sean Payton came in and they wanted to change everything over, and obviously had the 1 year with Russell Wilson. And you look at it to now, depth has, it seems like it came out of almost nowhere, and that's the remarkable to see teams turn it around so quickly. When you make the right moves and you pick the right guys, that can happen.
Yeah, you hit your picks, and you hit on a quarterback. You've got guys like Riley Moss in the second year last year. Having this level of growth. As long as you're doing that, it's very, very tough to do that all the time.
Right.
But you get like good, talk about Coach Payton and that 2017 Saints class. If you hit on a group of guys like that, like the Broncos did, you can win for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Now your mileage may vary. You don't want to rely on, it's like Like the Rams, the Rams aren't gonna draft Jared Verse every year.
But no, no.
But
They'd like to. Everyone would like to, but right. It's
the,
not how
the
it
whole
works.
the whole game is evaluating unique talent, acquiring unique
In
talent.
your system.
Yeah, and then utilizing that talent uniquely.
Yeah.
And they've done a great job.
Well, same thing for fantasy players. Obviously, you have to make sure you look. You got to hit on your picks. You have to make sure you don't overspend. You got to make sure you do all that too. And of course, that's something that you can inform people too with NFL Fantasy Live. So, where else can everyone find you? Catch up?
Yeah, it's hit me up on Blue Sky. Always on, DMs open. Don't use the bird that much anymore for certain reasons. But yeah, it's at Patrick Claybon. Same on Instagram. And just me and Cynthia and Adam Rank, Marcus Grant, Michael Florio, Kimmy Checks, our whole crew on Fantasy Live, our producers Todd Mossberg, Alex Wilk, Alan Flowers. We love this game and we love each other and we love to have fun, and that so many people get to share their fantasy experience with us. I'm spoiled rotten because there's a lot of places where people can be involved in football, and a lot of it's hot takery and it's dangerous. We love these players. We love this game. They've made my life possible, and so that people share that with us in an authentic way. I hope we get to do it for a long time.
Well, make sure you check it out. What Patrick and his team is doing for more, obviously, and we appreciate it. We know you're busy with this big weekend and with everywhere you're going for the NFL Network. So, thanks for coming out. Hope you enjoyed the time in Denver, and hopefully we get to see you back and do this again.
It's been
sometime.
great. Let's run it back. Let's make it 3 years in a row.
All right, let's do it. We'll catch this same time next year. Then, thanks so much, Patrick Claybon from NFL Network. I'm Sean Trota. This is Mile High Sports.